President Trump urging Republicans to stay united ahead of a Senate vote to block it. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican chair of the Homeland Security Committee. How you doing, sir? And good morning to you. I'm seeing as many as 15 Republican senators might vote against the president on this measure. They're making the case, go ahead and take away the emergency declaration. You got a pile of $6 billion, which is more than you wanted originally for the wall. Do you think he's going to take that deal and back down off of that, Senator?
I think there are other reasons why he wants the emergency powers. And, prior Congresses have given any president this authority to act under the National Emergency Act. This president's maybe expanding it, but he has the authority. And Congress has also given him the discretion in these appropriation bills. So I think he's definitely operating within his legal bounds. And from my standpoint, what I hope the Republican Senate does is not give Nancy Pelosi ball control of the United States Senate, but we should come up with our own piece of legislation that basically states what our position is. Republicans in the Senate support building the wall. We want to secure our border. We support the president on that. And to the extent that if we don't like the fact that prior Congresses had given him this authority, or any president this authority under the National Emergency Act, let's change that act. Mike Lee's going to have a bill that I'm co-sponsoring today that does just that. So that's the more appropriate way of doing this, as opposed to voting for Nancy Pelosi's resolution. That doesn't make any sense to me as a Republican in the United States Senate.
You're working against the clock on that, There has to be a vote in this resolution based on law.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty simple bill. We just come up with our own piece of legislation. We can change the National Emergency Act to return some of this power back to Congress, and we can also appropriate the funds in that same piece of legislation. Now, is anything going to become law? No. Nancy Pelosi's resolution won't become law. Ours probably won't, but a piece of legislation we would pass would be the better piece of legislation.
Okay, interesting. Here's the president from yesterday. He's got a message for Democrats and Republicans in Congress.
I think that really it's a very dangerous thing for people to be voting against border security for anybody, including Republicans. I really think that Republicans that vote against border security and the wall, I think, I've been okay at predicting things. I think they put themselves at great jeopardy.
Check that clearly from Hanoi last week. Here's the tweet from the president now, more recent. Senate Republicans are not voting on constitutionality or precedent. They are voting on desperately needed border security and the wall. Our country is being invaded with drugs, human traffickers, and criminals of all shapes and sizes. That's what this vote is all about. Stay united. Easier said than done?
Well, it is a political vote. We already know that Nancy Pelosi does not have the votes to override a veto, so it's a moot point. So from my standpoint, we should support the president. We do have a crisis at the border. In 2014, President Obama said it was a humanitarian crisis when 120,000 unaccompanied children and people coming in as families across the border illegally and were apprehended. Last year, 145,000 people came in illegally under those same categories. In 5 months, Bill, 159,000 unaccompanied children and family members have come to this country illegally. This is a growing crisis. It's not going away. 159,000 in 5 months versus 120,000 in a year when President Obama called it a humanitarian crisis. It is a crisis. It is an emergency. And Democrats have their heads so far in the sand when they say this is manufactured. This is a real crisis. It's beyond anything we've seen in the past. These are individuals that are coming here exploiting our laws, and they are staying, unlike what was happening earlier in the few decades in the 2000s when it was Mexican economic migrants that we could return immediately. They would sometimes be apprehended multiple times. So Democrats are comparing apples to oranges. This is a crisis. It is an emergency.
He's concerned about the unity, so we'll see whether or not it happens. Sir, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Ron Johnson, the Republican from Wisconsin. Thank you, Sandra.